Yeah, Zoom wants to make sure we're honest. We're recording this so we have a record of it because we want to, not all of our members are here, and this way they can watch at their leisure. I am going to share my screen for just a moment to give you an overview, and then I will be passing the baton off to various other people. Oh, sure. So I'm sharing the screen. First is play. We have a very little good morning from me. I'm going to be off the stage in moments. And then Stephanie's going to welcome new members. And we get on to a real treat that we normally would have had last May, but we held off because we'd like to do this in person, but we don't want to wait any longer. The Edie Silverman Community Service Award, that's a highlight. And then we have the wonderful treat of hearing from a fellow with a career development grant whom your endowments are helping to support. Maria Salgado, currently at USC, will be speaking to us. Then we have a look back at the past, along with where they are now, Tech Trek, local scholarship, and some AAUW Fund recipients. We're seeing who you gave awards to from 1998 on and where some of them are now. And it's remarkable. That was produced by Ava, and she's here today to talk about it a little bit also. And we will close with Deb York, another discussion on the diversity, equity, and inclusion theme for the year, where you have a chance to talk and we can see where we're going. Just briefly, I don't think we need this anymore, but I'll just go over it briefly. I'm going to be muting everybody in a moment. So if you need to talk, if you're a speaker, you'll have to unmute yourself. The mute and unmute is down in the lower left corner. Video on and off. If your internet is weak, turn your video off. You will still see everyone. We will see your name and your connection should be stronger. When we start, if you switch to speaker view in the upper right corner, you'll be able to see the speaker much better. They'll show up large. Everybody else will be much smaller. And last, the chat window, it's our friend. If you move your cursor to the bottom in the middle, you'll see the chat window. That's where we want you to ask questions of Maria. So while she's talking, if you have questions, type them into the chat window and hit enter. The one thing to check is that your comment goes to everyone, not to somebody else, because then Maria won't see it. So I'm going to stop this share. I'm going to briefly tell you that that the board has been busy. I'm not going to go over business, but we have been really working on a strategic plan. That Tech Trek is beginning to work on a possible camp in person next summer. Local scholarship girls are off to college and they are staying in touch, letting us know how they're doing, which is exciting. The Cleo community grant recipients are underway. They're beginning their work on the projects that we have funded. Interest groups, as you know, are continuing to meet, a few in person with the county safety COVID guidelines, most of them on Zoom. And with that, that's about it for business. I want to save the time for our speakers, but first, Stephanie Oyoung is going to welcome a couple of new members.
Yeah, and before I even introduce them, actually, thank you, Bob. I just wanted to make a note that, before, while we were all loading the call here and chatting, we were talking about the lack of engagement around other communities in their AAUW, and some of the organizations are having a hard time holding steadfast through COVID. and whatever, is causing challenges for the group. And I have to say, I think it's a testament to everybody on this call, the fact that I'm introducing new members this month. A lot of them are brought in by you, and that's exactly why we started this new membership drive of Bring a Friend, right? The Bring a Friend campaign, which is essentially giving you all an opportunity to introduce like-minded people to this organization and the amazing value that it offers. But I just wanted to give a big shout out to everybody for just being here and understanding the value of what this group offers, and participating through, the ups and downs of COVID and everything else. I mean, even when we're in person, this is still a challenge. And there's so many people, Bup and everybody else on the board and everybody else that kind of rolls up their sleeves and make this group work on an ongoing basis. It's such a success that I'm thrilled to see that. So first of all, thank you for bringing these two new members. One of them is on the call today. I don't see Lynn Forbes, so I don't think she has joined us, but Nancy, is she here?
Lynn is traveling.
Oh, okay. Okay, I'm still going to introduce her. And then as you guys, she has a lot of interest and is going to be participating in a lot of the interest groups. So you will be meeting her, and by all means, make sure you introduce yourself when you do. So again, her name is Lynn Forbes. She comes to us after getting a BA in communications from Seton Hall University. And she's still working as a freelance journalist. So has noted a few times that she wants to do everything, but only has so much time. I'm sure just like the rest of us. But she has not only participating in this group, but she's a part of the Firewise Committee and a few other organizations around town, including League of Women. So I think she's in our book club, she's in the garden group, and a few other interests. So by all means, if you're in any of those interest groups, please make sure that you introduce yourself and welcome her. So that's Lynn. Hopefully we'll see her at the next meeting. Nancy's here today. Welcome, Nancy. Nancy Jeffrey went to several schools, but graduated from Washburn University in Topeka with an art and English degree. And Nancy, I'm going to put you on the spot in a second. So I hope you're willing to give a wave and a hello for why you're here. She also is still working. She's a corporate leadership trainer, which is great. So maybe Nancy, I should reach out to you. And likewise is in several organizations around the community, including Sierra Harvest, which I love because they're at my kids' elementary school. Thank you. And she's also interested in several groups. I think you're already plugged into the book group, right? From what I understand, and hopefully gets going with the arts and crafts group and a few other of our interest groups that she has interest in. So Nancy, you want to say something really quick? We're just so tickled that you're here and glad to have more viewpoints and more energy in the group. So do you want to say anything about why you're here? No, she doesn't. Wave then, Nancy, just wave. Okay.
Oh,
we'll take a wave.
I was on mute. I just want to say thank you to everybody. This has been the most warm welcome I've ever received. And it's just a delight. I have looked at AAUW from afar for years and thought, what an awesome organization. But my work and other volunteer things really kept me from looking further. And I'm simply delighted to be a part of this wonderful group of women who've been so welcoming to me. And yes, I got to go to the book club, and I'm going to go to the Great Decision, and several things. I'm excited. So thank you very much.
We're thrilled to have you, Nancy.
Thank you very much.
And when we get back to going back physical, it'll be even better to meet you in person. So one of these days. Anyway, but I think that's it for me. But again, just a quick reminder, everybody. Oh, no, wrong. Bup, you did ask me, do we have any other guests that we are not aware of? Anybody bring a guest today?
We have two former tech trekkers who are on the call. Somebody who I think you're closely aware of, Stephanie, is your daughter Annabelle, who's joining us from Corvallis,
I don't feel like she's
Oregon. And Ava, wave Annabelle, and Ava Johnson, who is on her way, sadly, to a funeral in Santa Cruz, but is joining us in transport. So hi, Ava. I don't know if either one of you guys want to say anything, but thank you for joining us.
Fantastic to see those little faces come back.
Great.
All right. So yeah, as a last reminder, if anybody do remember to, whenever possible, and I know this will probably pick up a little more when we're back in person again, But if you do bring a friend, every time you bring a friend, you'll be entered for, it's a competition to bring the most friends this year. Let's put it that way. There will be some prizes at the end of the tunnel, some acknowledgement at the end of the tunnel, and we'd love to just make sure that, as we're spreading our wings a little bit and sharing again the value that this offer brings. So I appreciate your help doing that. All right, Bob, back to you.
Okay. I'm going to first mute everybody so that there are any accidental surprises. Make sure I'm not muted. Shouldn't be. Yeah. I'm going to give it over to Susie Monnery Wilson, our last year's Edie Silverman Award recipient, and she is going to introduce this year. So Susie, you're going to have to unmute yourself in a moment, and then Susie will pass you back to Mary, our program chair, and Mary will continue with the rest of the program. So Susie, over to you.
Thank you so much. What I'd like to do is introduce our recipient for this year. Our 2021 Edie Silverman awardee is one of those individuals who has a knack for identifying needs and then pitching in to help address them. Not one for fanfare or the spotlight, she often works behind the scenes. For example, she willingly shares her culinary skills to ensure a deliciously successful AAUW fundraiser, or her artistic talents to creatively display the branch's programs and activities. Recently, she even took the heroic efforts to rescue some of our local scholarship recipients from a swarm of hornets and had the stings to show for it. During her tenure with AAUW Nevada County Branch, she has stepped up to serve in a variety of roles, including membership, local scholarships, secretary, and hiking group leader, often fine-tuning procedures and spending countless hours for the branch's benefit. Along the way, she has found innovative ways to benefit the community through branch activities as well. Those activities include the AAUW Fund Ladies Night Out for a Cause and the Holiday Stocking Project, both benefiting Nevada County's Child Advocates of Nevada County, also known as CASA. But that's just the AAUW part of the story. This member seems to always find ways to make the lives of her fellow Nevada County residents better too. And those ways are as varied as are her talents. As part of an English as a second language program, she put on her tutor hat, helping Rosa, an immigrant from Mexico, and Svetlana, a Russian bride, become fluent in English and better acculturated to Northern California living. As a good neighbor, she takes her duty seriously. To help keep her Rattlesnake neighborhood clean and safer, she has actively participated in the quarterly cleanup of Rattlesnake and Lower Colfax Road, chipping vegetation and pulling Scotch broom along the roadways. She also works on properties whose landowners are unable to do it themselves. And she's volunteered with the Fire Safe Council of Nevada County, helping to conduct the Green Waste Drop-Off event in Alta Sierra. As a volunteer with Habitat for Humanity, she's put her building skills to work, helping to construct a new home on Whiting Street. As a hiker, she understands the value of well-groomed and maintained trails. So anyone who enjoys hiking the Bear Yuba Land Trust trails has her to thank. She frequently volunteers to build new trails in Western Nevada County, including the Wolf Creek, Rattlesnake, Yuba Rim, Rambler, and Black Swan, among many others. And she also has worked to maintain existing trails, as well as helping to clean up the residual from homeless camps. For all of these reasons and more, we are proud to honor my friend and travel buddy, Deborah Cubberly, as the AAUW Nevada County Branch's 2021 Edie Silverman Award recipient for community involvement. So congratulations, Deborah.
Yay!
And here's your plaque. And your name, I don't know if you can see, there you are. So I'll be delivering that to you next week. So happy for you, so well deserved. Congrats.
Well, hi, everybody. My name is Mary Weaver, and I am program co-chair with Shanti Emerson. This is my first meeting that I've, emceed, I guess you would call it, and it's a pleasure to be here. And I have the pleasure of introducing Maria Salgado. If you have questions during Maria's presentation, as Bob said, just put them in the chat and I can read them aloud as well. Maria Salgado is a USC student in the Master's in Education in Enrollment Management and Policy program. She was born and raised in Los Angeles. She got her undergraduate degree at UC Santa Barbara. And for several years, she's done some work in the nonprofit sector, including AmeriCorps, working with middle school students to help them achieve. And she's worked with students with disabilities as well to help them in their career path. She received 17 AAUW endowments, including 2 from our branch. And AAUW funds operate on a national level as opposed to local scholarships and tech track. Donations are pooled into 4 different categories, one being education and training. Fellowships and grants are awarded at the national level. Please welcome Maria Salgado.
Hi, thank you. So I'm going to start sharing my screen just to make sure everything is working. Let's see. Let's see. Okay, let me try that again. Can you see my presentation?
Yes, we can.
Okay, awesome. So I'm very excited to be here talking about my master's program, and I also just feel very privileged to have been selected for this grant because going back to school was something that I knew that I always wanted to do, but I had a really difficult time in my undergraduate career and really struggled to get through my last year and kind of just left me with a really, I'll say like academic trauma to describe it that way. But I knew that like my master's program was always something and advancing my career was always something that I wanted to do. So I went into the workforce and then I finally decided like I'm going to go for it. And when I came across the AAUW, which it was actually a scholarship that I had recommended to some of my students that I advised for, but when I saw that that you all do career grants, I was really encouraged. And it just felt really amazing that we have a community that is supporting and encouraging women to go back to advance their career. So I just felt really encouraged when I found this organization, this specific grant, and I decided to apply for it. And I was just like over the moon when I realized that I had gotten this really amazing grant, and now I get to be a part of this really amazing network. But so my program is in enrollment management, and for me, this is an approach to create equitable college access and success practices. Let me see if I can get a better view so I can see you all. Is anyone familiar with enrollment management? Show of hands. No? Okay. So I'll talk a little bit about what it is, but to start, I want to talk about what are some of the challenges that we're seeing in the current space of college admissions and enrollment. So for one is that the amount of funding that is available to students entering the college space is not sufficient for students to be able to pay for their education. And in fact, the Pell Grant, which is one of the largest funding sources for students who are considered low or moderate income, only covers about 30% of the tuition and fees. And this is a significant drop from when the program first started, which it covered initially about 90% of those tuition and fees. The other thing that we're seeing is standardized testing, and there's mounting evidence that shows that standardized testing is not necessarily a good indicator of college success. Legacy admissions and early admissions are two that are not often talked about as limiting opportunities for students who are first generation and low income students. But the reality of early admissions is that a lot of the times students who are coming from these marginalized backgrounds are not aware of early admissions programs, and those early admissions are mostly benefiting students who do have access to amazing college advisors who are telling them about this process. And a lot of colleges and universities actually fill a large portion of their enrollment slots during the early admissions program. So we can start to see how those are already creating some benefits for students that are already privileged in the college enrollment and admissions process. Legacy admissions, one of the institutional priorities for some schools is maintaining that endowment that is largely funded by alumni. So legacy admissions does tend to benefit students who come from wealthy backgrounds. And the other thing is that we're seeing now is that merit scholarships and athletic scholarships for elite students do disadvantage students who don't have access to elite sports such as lacrosse and rowing. And the other thing that is somewhat creating a bit of chaos or lack of collaboration, I'll say, in the college ecosystem is an overemphasis and prestige on college rankings, which is not really it's not really tied to any concrete evidence of that indicates that one institution is better than another. And in fact, because there is a lack of access to good information where students can learn about colleges and universities when they're beginning their college exploration, they look to these college rankings. And so because we already have this system of hierarchy because of the rankings, students have this notion, develop these ideas that, well, I need to be like at Harvard or at Princeton, which are really amazing schools, don't get me wrong, but there are also other really amazing schools that are not represented in the top 25. So that's just a little bit about that. And here I wanted to show that institutional priorities and resources and policy practice impact student success. And this bar graph shows the disparate impact in that student success. Well, the first thing that I want to point out is that the national average of students graduating within 6 years, the total is only about 60%. So I think that this already shows that there's room for improvement for how institutions are holding themselves accountable when they choose to enroll a student and fulfilling that promise that they're going to get a degree at the end of that investment. But you can also see that for Black and Hispanic students that educational attainment is much lower. In fact, it's only 40% for Black students graduating within 6 years, and only 21% of those students graduate within 4 years. Let's see. So the case for better equity and accountability in higher education, what's at stake is, for one, societal benefits. We know that higher educational attainment increases in earning potential, which for society, that translates to, more taxpayers and higher ability to pay taxes and tax revenue. But there's also a dire need for institutions to rethink their strategy and enrollment practices, because there is an impending decline of traditional college-bound students that will begin in about 2026, and we're not that far from that time, and we can already start to see some of that decline in the traditional college going population. And another thing that we're seeing with COVID is that students are also rethinking about how they want to, pursue their career endeavors after high school graduation. So that's another thing that we're seeing that is impacting that space. And then in additional to the fact that there will be a decline in the traditional college-bound population, the growth within the only growth that we will see in that in that decline is in communities or students demographics that have historically been not served very well by colleges and universities. So I believe that the highest growth in that time period will be in Hispanic and in Hispanic students, specifically like in the Southwest. And so ultimately, the other thing is that we must do a better job to realize the promise of upward mobility for marginalized groups. But when we do this work and we do it well, it's something that benefits all students. And I say that because the most expensive degree that a student will have is one that is never finished, because when students are admitted to a college and they take out loans but don't actually receive a degree that will help them pay for those loans, it becomes increasingly more difficult to be able to pay off that debt. So making that promise of college attainment a reality is important for all students, and we have to do better. So these are some targeted programming that has been proven to be effective in improving success for marginalized students. One of them is to create cohort-based first year courses where students have an opportunity to build community. Another is to optimize the impact of financial aid. The University of Kansas has this really amazing work study program where all of the first year students are in a cohort, and they utilize the work study awards that students receive to get them into paid research positions, which is really amazing. I attended a research institution, and one of my biggest regrets was that I didn't do research while I was there. And the other thing is to have a space for identity development and self-affirmation. It's not enough to simply say, well, we have a multicultural center on our campus and call our DEI efforts done for the day. It really has to be about allowing students the space to develop their own identities and affirm their own identities, and not come with assumptions about what students need in that space. And really just starting with asking, like, well, how are you experiencing, like, how has that experiencing been for you? And allowing those conversations to happen in places where students feel safe. The other thing is enrolling and hiring a critical mass of representation in the student body and the faculty of underrepresented communities. And this has been challenged because of affirmative action bans like we have here in California. There's not really a clear guideline that says, like, well, this is what we know, that this is like the critical mass of students that need to be on campus in order to have like the true benefits of diversity, where students feel safe and are able to participate and not just be present. The other thing is having a student retention task force is critically important, because these are issues that are not going to be like a one-time, be all issues, and it's something that needs to be intentionally thought about consistently, and in order to have that real commitment, we need to have a task force of people that are looking at what are the trends in student success, and continually asking the questions like, how can we do better? How can we serve our students in a better capacity? And the other thing is having integrated DEI practices, and I'm actually going to come back to this bullet point. So, okay, wow, I didn't realize this was going to upload like this. Okay, so, sorry. So the enrollment process is consists of a lot of different factors. As you can see, enrollment management provides a framework by which to analyze the processes that impact college success. It includes every aspect of the student experience in post-secondary education, from the time that they're exploring what college to attend. So when they're doing, like here, when we're looking at our different markets of who to market to, who to reach out to, and all the way up until college graduation, where students become alumni and hopefully continue to be a part of the community through alumni donations. But my focus is on admissions, persistence, and processes, and discussing the challenges and opportunities that affect that college attainment for students in marginalized backgrounds. But this pyramid shows just like all of the things, all of the components that can be discussed, that can be researched in the enrollment space in post-secondary education, that provide really amazing information to be able to determine whether our policies are working. Are they creating equity in the higher education space, or are they continuing to marginalize that students that have historically been underrepresented? Okay. So the power of enrollment management is pretty big, and as such, for my capstone project, I will be creating a 5-year enrollment plan that increases the diversity in the student body, that sustains student revenue and improves graduation rates, and doing all of this through a lens of equity. And for me, that means that the admissions policy has the power to repudiate the impact of systemic racism, and instead of creating microcosms of societal inequities, where students who are historically marginalized in society and then enroll in a college campus and continue to be marginalized in these spaces because we haven't thought intentionally about how students move through an institution. And that requires us to be mindful of the sociological processes that impact student development and mediate the broad differences in the student's ability to participate in higher education. And so this is kind of my framework that I've developed as a part of my admissions policy. And so it includes admissions philosophy that include capacity to perform, which is an assessment of a student's ability to contribute to academic conversations, and the potential to benefit. This criteria reviews the process to increase admissions for low socioeconomic students. Those who can overcome adversity are meritorious and deserve the opportunity to pursue their educational aspirations, because this is evidence that they're motivated to succeed. And these students are qualified to succeed in college as well. And their work ethic is highly desired by employers, and investing in self-motivated young people is a worthy endeavor for society. And lastly, the potential to contribute. So here, looking at the potential to contribute helps us shape the social learning environment and create intellectual diversity. So diversity doesn't always have to be is not always interpreted in terms of racial, ethnic diversity, but it can also have diversity of learning experiences. Maybe this could also mean opening opportunities for students who are not traditional students, maybe having an emphasis on transfer students, or students who maybe are adult learners. So this factor is evaluated by observing where students excel. So one of the things that I'll point out about this kind of admissions framework is that it doesn't include race, because my case study is a university in California. And because we have an affirmative action ban, that's not something that institutions are allowed to use when making college admissions decisions. But And it also doesn't include standardized testing. And one of the indicators that I have found in my research that I think would be really interesting to implement on a broader scale is the College Personal Potential Index, that researchers have found is an assessment that is designed to measure the interpersonal skills that indicate the potential for a student to succeed in college. And traditionally, this has been done through standardized testing like the SAT, the ACT, but there are other indicators, and there's other ways to assess whether a student will be successful in college. Let's see. So the evaluation and selection that I recommend is that we have like a 2-reader process, and that those readers are familiar with the applicant's context of opportunity. And studies have been conducted that show that admissions counselors who are familiar with a student's context of opportunity, like what is their high school, what is the quality of their high school, like what are some of the circumstances in their environment that have impacted potentially their academic profile by the time that they become college applicants. Those admissions counselors who are familiar with those backgrounds are more likely to enroll some of these students who would present on paper as not having the academic ability to succeed in college, but because they know what the student has had to overcome in that context of their learning and preparation, they are able to make a better assessment of those students. So low-income students who are reviewed by counselors that have this background have a higher chance of being admitted to college. So that just goes to show, like, even having that familiarity, we're able to dispel some of the biases that we have when we think about who can succeed in college. And the reason why I recommend a 2-reader review is to also just like have some level of quality control, and that admissions counselors are able to get to the same decision using the same rubric, and there's not like some biases operating in the background or underlying assumptions. And so there are validations that we can look at that are not necessarily high school, that are not necessarily tied to standardized tests, which I've said. It is something that is more exclusionary than anything, specifically for students who do not have the money to pay for the preparation for these standardized tests. But there's also studies that show that high school grades and the courses that students complete throughout high school are actually a better indicator of college success. And the reason for that is because they show a performance over a longer period of time, as opposed to a test that shows you a student's performance in one sitting for one task. And this performance over a longer period of time is able to inform admissions counselors about a student's ability to persevere through challenges, their time management, their commitment to achieving a task that they set for themselves. So first-year grades are actually probably one of the biggest, indicators that tell us if a student can succeed in college. And the other thing that I'll say about this kind of like cycle, because it really is a cycle, institutions create admissions policies that try to determine whether a student will be able to complete their programs based on the academic rigor. And that is so they establish these like norms that are based on like, okay, well, we think that the student was going to need X, Y, and Z in order to be successful in college. But it also shows that a lot of the times we're not very good. We're not able to, to make great assessments about that potential. So it really challenges to ask ourselves, like, how we're evaluating success in the best approach. And so continuously asking, like, what does merit mean, and how are we evaluating that, and is it creating some indirect advantages for some students or some unintentional discrimination for others? So going back to the point that I said first, I think that in order to do this work and create spaces that are intentionally diverse and create space for everyone to feel welcomed, I think that it's important to have at the leadership level an indication that signals to students and also to students in that and stakeholders in that community and in that space that says that we're declaring this diversity mission and vision is our declaration that says that this is something that is important to our community. It's important to define what we mean when we talk about diversity. Why is it important to our cause, and how will we know to be that we are being successful in that space? And again, it's not something that is just needs to happen. It is something that we've seen happening a lot. We've seen more institutions pay more attention to those spaces, but it's not something that just needs to happen in one moment. It's something that needs to continue to happen, and institutional leaders need to continue to make that commitment to show that this is really something that is important for that community. So I wanted to show this picture because I think it really shows that sometimes we create policies with the best intentions, but if we're not asking ourselves who is benefiting, if we're not vigilant of how those policies are impacting the communities that that we work with, if we're not analyzing what are the trends showing and asking ourselves, like, who's benefiting and who's being marginalized, then we're not doing a great job in staying true to our commitment of diversity, equity, and inclusion. And we also have learned that because not everybody comes to the table with the same resources, with the same experiences. Sometimes the students that we're working with have unequal backgrounds. And so it would be unfair to say, well, we're going to treat everybody equal. So a better approach is that everyone gets what they need, that students who haven't had, the same resources in attending like a private school and it's interesting, like I actually do work with some really amazing people in some very prestigious high schools, and I'm actually surprised how much they charge for tuition. But if we don't take this into consideration, then we're not really creating the opportunity for equitable participation. But really, when we do this work and we do it intentional, we're able to create policies that benefit everybody. And so that's really the most important thing. And just a little bit about my context. So as I mentioned earlier, I spent a lot of time working in college advising in the nonprofit sector. And these are some of the students that I've had the privilege to work with. And this student here, I actually met her when I was doing my AmeriCorps year of service in the Boyle Heights community, which is a community that I've worked with for a very long time, and now I live here. But I met her when she was an 8th grader. And then when I started working as a college advisor, I had the opportunity to, guide her through her college admissions, and she was at UCLA. She graduated, I believe, last year, and she's working in the legal space. And then this is my one of my favorite stories to tell, but this is my student Carolina. And the funny thing about Carolina is that I also worked with her older sister. I actually worked with her older sister before I worked with her. And I had recommended Alejandra, Carolina's sister, to go to a flyout program to visit Franklin and Marshall, and her parents were not having it. And so I had to have a conversation and advocate for Alejandra to be able to go on this, on this travel program out of state by herself. And it really made a big difference in that family because, and this is the conversations that were very common in that I had to have with the students that I work with, particularly the women, is that, sometimes parents are scared that, that of sending their daughters off to high school, to college away from home. But after Alejandra was able to do that experience and the parents were able to trust that everything was going to be okay, Carolina was actually able to go to Ecuador, after she graduated from college, and she was away for a whole year. And so this is an opportunity that maybe like the family would have never considered had it not started with a conversation about what does it mean, how is it going to be possible, and just kind of easing some of the fears that parents had. I'm currently working as a graduate assistant in the Center for Enrollment Research Policy and Practice, where I get to have conversations about a lot of the things that I just talked about. And as I mentioned earlier, one of the grants that we're working under in my graduate assistantship is we're conducting a study to assess the impact of college enrollment trends on as a result of COVID-19. And the other one is investigating and proposing other funding alternatives that would supplement college funding at the federal level to make sure that students are able to afford college, specifically for low-income and moderate-income students. And after graduation, I hope to be in a leadership position where I can do this work in the post-secondary education space, or even in foundations or government work. And I'll stop talking because I think I exceeded my 20 minutes.
Yeah, there were several questions, and I think you defined what the CPPI is. One question was, do schools still use the SAT and ACT in admissions?
So I think that right now we have the highest number, like the highest record number of institutions that are not utilizing SAT and ACT testing. But there's definitely still schools that are using standardized testing, and I believe have resumed this year or plan to resume again next year.
And then how is grade inflation impacting admissions? And how do admission evaluators compare schools or schools that offer more advanced classes with those who have limited offerings?
Yeah, so the perception was, and this is why enrollment management research is so important, because I think that institutions can appease like those fears of like grade inflation, like are we benefiting one institution over, or one high school over another, and institutions can kind of answer that question by doing data tracking about student performance from from having collected 1 year of application cycles, and just seeing like what is the history. And institutions already do this. They do kind of take history of like students that they recruited from each individual high school or each region, and so they can do like comparative analysis of what those grades look like, how do they compare with grades from other high schools in that region. So that's one way to do it. It is, I mean, it is definitely a concern that institutions have, but it is actually something that has been found to be more common in elite high schools or elite private high schools, where or I think the other one was like religious-based high schools. But I mean, yeah, that's definitely something that is a concern. But one of the ways that can be ameliorated or kind of standardized is by continuing to take stock of like, what are the grades that we're getting from students that are coming from this high school. So does that answer your question?
Yes, I think so. And then the last question we have is, do you see your work focused on changing college admission systems or also changing high school counselors and the way they guide students?
That's a really great question, because it's something that is so interrelated, that and I'll say that to give an example, a lot of the things that, for example, that have been covered in standardized tests. So right now, standardized tests is something that, well, not right now specifically, but traditionally, standardized tests have kind of set the bar for what students need to learn in high school in order to prepare for college, because college standardized tests have essentially been seen as like, okay, this is like the bar that you need to pass in order to be able to be successful in college. So those standardized tests really set the bar for what the curriculum of students, in high school will be, because high school administrators obviously want students to be prepared for college, but that has focused a lot on very traditional, like core curriculum subjects that is not necessarily the best assessment for all students. I think that some of the subjects, like, I mean, there's been a lot of changes to the SAT. And I think one of the examples was like analogies, like using analogies in the standardized test. Like, that's not curriculum that necessarily says that a student is going to be successful. So it has a really big impact. Like, how we develop these policies has a really big impact for what students are actually going to learn. So making sure that the people that are making these decisions, that are determining like whether a student is going to be successful in college, should really consider like, what are the actual skills that students are going to need in the real world, because it's really more about not just like a student going and being successful in college. It's about having real world life application skills. So it really is all integrated. And the reason why there's been so much very little progress, I'll say, in that space is because it's very decentralized. So states get to ultimately decide what is in the curriculum, and colleges and universities have the task of kind of like synthesizing what a student's academic preparation has been when we have students coming from different high schools, different college, different states with different core curriculum. And so that, I think that's one of the challenges, that it is very decentralized, but it is also something that ties into each other. So I'd say that's like one of the spaces where we need to have like more cohesive conversations about what that looks like. But yeah, I think that you can't change one without it affecting the other.
Okay, I think we'll take this one last question. But
Mary, can I suggest that as we take it, could Maria stop sharing her screen? Just
Yes.
we'll hear better.
okay, well, I lost the question. There we go. Many skilled, high-paying jobs do not require a 4-year degree. Any thoughts of apprenticeship programs to prepare our workforce?
Yeah, and with the looming decline of traditional college age students, this is something that institutions will have to grapple with, especially because we've seen COVID has kind of just exacerbated a lot of the processes And now we have like, you know, Amazon is offering like apprenticeships, and we have other institutions that are kind of doing the same with Google certificates. So it really is, I think that students and maybe even families are questioning like the benefit of the 4-year college degree or like the bachelor's degree. Like we really don't need to have, you know, this investment. They're really questioning the value of the investment. And I think that is an opportunity for institutions to think, well, what are we offering to students, and is it meeting their needs? And if we're seeing trends that show that students are able to go from high school into an apprenticeship and be successful in 2 years, you know, getting a certificate, is that an opportunity for institutions to rethink what are the services that we're providing for students? And I was actually, this is something that I was thinking about, because and this is kind of my own speculation, but I'm thinking because we have seen somewhat of a decline in students enrolling in college or questioning that value, I'm wondering if institutions can host like a gap year that kind of help students like guide and figure out like what they want to do, but it is like hosted by an institution. I think that could be, you know, a space that could be explored a little bit further.
Well, Maria, we want to thank you for being our guest today. And we wouldn't normally meet in person with someone who has received some of our grant money, and it's just been delightful. And there are so many educators too who are in our local branch. And I'm sure that your talk today was of real importance to them as well as all of us branch members. So thank you so much.
Thank you so much for having me.
Thank you, Maria. Wonderful.
And now we're wondering if Deborah Coverly, who just received the Edie Silverman Award, would say a few words.
Well, I don't know who that was that Susie was describing. It didn't sound like me at all. But no, I'm thrilled, and it's quite a privilege. So I don't know. I feel like this year I haven't done as much as I've done in the past, but I don't know. Maybe that just shows something. Relax a little bit and enjoy, and you get recognized. Anyway, thank you so much.
No, that's not the message we want to send.
And we left a lot of things out, Deborah, so don't be modest. You know, you're just going full steam ahead every day. So we just love you. Congrats.
Well, thank you. Thank you. Yeah, my hairdresser, I went in to have my hair cut the other day, and she said, yeah, I saw you working out in the trail over there. And I said, well, that's why my hair is so filthy right now. But anyway.
Congratulations.
Thank you.
Okay, next up is Martha Reese, and she'll tell us more about, well, introduce a video and tell us more about some of our scholarship and Tech Trek award winners. Martha Reese.
Thanks, Mary. Thanks to Maria for sharing her inspiring work and goals and demonstrating the value of support of the National AAUW Fund program. As Mary noted, our philanthropic efforts also include local programs aimed at helping to launch Nevada County girls and women on their academic and career paths, among those things. Tech Trek, which is a program for middle school girls, is one of those. And Tech Trek is for girls interested in science, technology, engineering, math, and STEM. During normal times, the girls spend a week at UC Davis engaged in STEM-related workshops, activities, film trips, and meeting women in STEM fields. The program is free to the attendees thanks to our donors. And former Trekkers can return as JCs or SCs, that's junior counselors or senior counselors. Our local scholarship program is for college-bound high school and Sierra College graduates attending a 4-year college and majoring in a STEM field. We also offer re-entry grants for women who have been out of school and want to go back to earn a degree or certification to increase their earning power. Most recently, we've added Cleo educational scholarships and community grants, which are the result of a legacy gift from past AAUW member Cleo Gibson. Recipients of these programs are high school graduates and local communities projects that reflect Cleo's interests. To give personal meaning to these descriptions, we asked 2018 Trekker Ava Johnson if she would produce a video to introduce us to some of the former recipients of and participants in these programs. And true to form, she did just that. So here I'm pleased to present the video that Ava has produced. There's no audio. Up, there's no audio.
Martha, maybe it's because we're all muted.
No, I just
No.
don't.
No.
Avenues, members have seized the opportunity to provide pathways for
You hear
women
it
and
now?
girls to get a higher education, earn better
Yes,
wages.
we can hear it now. Can you,
become
do you
leaders
want to
in
put,
fields
do you want to
once
start
dominated
it,
by men.
restart it?
AAUW Nevada County Branch member. When women support each other, incredible things happen. In fact, incredible things are happening thanks to the philanthropic efforts of AAUW Nevada County Branch members. Through various avenues, members have seized the opportunity to provide pathways for women and girls to get a higher education, earn better wages, and become leaders in fields once dominated by men. AAUW Nevada County Branch members work hard to serve as the linchpin for our outreach, activities, and efforts. AAUW Nevada County offers philanthropic opportunities through programs such as local scholarships and grants, the AAUW Fund, and Tech Trek. Over the years, our philanthropy support has provided more than 203 local scholarships and 23 re-entry grants, more than 125 Tech Trek scholarships, and nearly $90,000 in AAUW Fund contributions. Let's hear more about these programs and meet a few recipients.
My name is Chelsea Sharon. I am a professor of astronomy and physics. I work at Yale NUS College, which is a small liberal arts college in Singapore. And I was one of the first generations of Tech Trek students in 1998. So I did my undergrad at the California Institute of Technology, where I did my Bachelor of Science in Astrophysics. Then I went on to Rutgers, the State University of New Jersey, where I did my PhD in astronomy. Then I did my first postdoc at Cornell University in the Department of Astronomy there. And then I went to McMaster University in Canada as the William and Caroline Herschel Postdoctoral Fellow. And so for people who are unfamiliar with what postdocs are, they're kind of the academic equivalent of temp positions where you do research full-time until universities kind of have decided you've proved your worth and are can have a full-time faculty position. So then I came to Yale NUS here in Singapore for as a faculty. I've been here 3 years now. And so I split my time pretty evenly between teaching and research. And for my research, I study galaxy evolution. So I'm interested in how galaxies form stars across cosmic time. Why is their star formation rate so high, about 10 billion years ago? And what has ended these epochs of extreme star formation to produce the populations of galaxies that we see today? I guess one of the key memories I have of Tech Trek is I just remember walking through Stanford campus. I think I was just going to the bookstore or something to pick up some swag or a book or whatever, and I just remember feeling like this is right, this is where I should be, and I definitely felt like, yes, I definitely want to be at a university for the rest of my life. This is where I belong. Oftentimes, I know I felt this quite acutely when I was pretty young too, that you don't really have a lot of role models a lot of the time. And so in principle, as any reasonably smart young woman would, that you can kind of do whatever you want. But then when you don't see so many people that look like you doing these careers that interest you, it kind of just, it gives you this little itch in the back of your head where you're just not certain, why is that? I don't understand what is going on. And so when you get to go to one of these events for women in STEM and get to talk to the women and see that they're real reasonable people and they have great lives and great careers, it's really reassuring that you can actually go out and do this thing. And maybe there will be stumbling blocks, but you can overcome them and it'll be fine. Well, I've always been really, really interested in astronomy, but coming from Nevada County, it's kind of rural. I didn't really know any professional scientists. I wasn't 100% certain I could do it. And so having that kind of early nudge from Tech Trek helped. And so I kind of learned my passion for science communication then as well. So I got the AAUW American Fellowship. So it's a dissertation completion fellowship. So the year that I got it, which I guess was 2012, 2013, it's basically for the final year of my thesis to fund me completing my PhD dissertation and defending, so I could then go on to first level.
My name is Alyssa Downs. I will be attending Chico State in the fall, and I'll be studying ag business. Through high school, I was very involved within FFA. That was my main priority. I had a lot of fun in it. I did many competitions, such as parliamentary procedure, which is an organized debate team. I did job interview. I did ag communications, and my team actually won states this year, so we get to go to nationals. All of these prepared me for agriculture and learn more about agriculture, but also the business aspect with public speaking and numbers and things like that. This scholarship has guided me in a path to allow me to go to college. So this year, I'm not paying a single penny towards my tuition or my housing because of all the amazing scholarships I've gotten, including this Cleo scholarship. So it's really helped me on my journey, and also it's helping me take off that financial burden so I'm able to focus on my education.
I'm Nora Devlin, and I went to school in Virginia at Washington and Lee University, and I majored in computer science. I'm in Southern California working as a software developer. I was at a liberal arts school, so I got to take classes in philosophy and dance and music. I have known that I wanted to be a software engineer since I interned at Telestream in Grass Valley. I learned about Telestream through my Tech Trek experiences. I now work for SAP, which is a large international German company. And yes, in high school, I started the We Equals MC Squared Club, which is for women in STEM careers, and that was supported by AAUW, and then we did put on the STEM into Knowledge together as well, and I think that is still kind of going. I know the pandemic threw it off a little bit, but I totally credit Tech Trek to encouraging me to continue in STEM and inspiring me to really be proud of my interest in math and science.
I'm Carolyn. I went to Tech Trek in 2012, and I just finished my bachelor's and master's degrees in electrical engineering and computer science from UC Berkeley. And my interest is kind of in like biotechnology and medical devices. I did the AAUW Tech Trek at UC Davis in 2012, I believe. But I think even then I was in an engineering cluster, but I was really crazy about there was a one-day robotics workshop. That was like my favorite thing. I kind of worked with AAUW on the STEM into Knowledge camp. I was a volunteer my sophomore year of high school when Nora Devlin did it, and then I ran it my junior and senior year. And I also was the president of the Weagles MC Squared Club, which worked with AAUW to put on the camp. I did that, I think, my junior and senior year as well. I mean, I always had a general interest in math and science, but I think it was like after Tech Trek that I was like, I really want to be an engineer. Like, this is what I would like. And it was funny because even leading up to it, it was all the things I was brainstorming, things I wanted to do. And even just being around people talking about math and science kind of pushed me in that direction. But, like, I really want to be an engineer. And here we are. At least when I was young, you know, there's a lot of girls who the math and science and everything is really interesting. And I don't think it always clicks, but like this, you know, this is something that I can really, I don't think you always understand how that relates to careers and how it relates to, you know, these courses you're taking when you're young actually do have some relevance later on. And but Tech Trek for me, what was so great was just seeing how these things connected to real world things that sounded interesting.
My name is Bethany Ponte, and I have gone to Sierra College for some of my education, and I got 4 AS degrees there. And then I transferred 2 years ago to UC Davis. And from there, I got my bachelor's of science in psychology with an emphasis in biology. And now I am starting my work at UNR as a PhD student in the graduate school for an integrative neuroscience program. I'm really appreciative of this organization just really helping these students. And one thing that I think really stands out, you know, I got some scholarships in high school and some others at Sierra College, and they would give it to you and that was it. That was the end of the journey with them. And I was really with AAUW anticipating the same thing. So I was really happy to not only hear from the organization, but especially from Anne multiple times and checking in on me, especially through the pandemic, and just my opportunity to give back. It's been great.
So my name is Alex, and I went to Godoti High School, and I now live in Portland, and I graduated from the University of Portland with a degree in civil engineering. And I'm now working for a company called WSP as a hydropower engineer. The value provided to younger girls through things like Tech Trek, I think there's a ton of value in that. And I think it's great to show young girls that anything is possible, anything that they want to do is possible. And whether that be in STEM or even if it's in something else, but in particular STEM, there's not as much direct, well, there's a lot of outreach. It's not always, the message isn't always given to them from every single person in their lives, but that's something that they can do. And I think knowing that there's a bunch of people that back you, that are behind you, and that there's people who support you in what you're doing.
And yay. So that gives you a glimpse, you know, a peek at some of the wonderful women who we've helped launch. But before further ado, I want to introduce the producer, the interviewer, the all around amazing Ava Johnson, who thanks to Bernadette and Ed Sylvester, who donated to give her through AAUW to make her AAUW intern at the Nevada County Media Center. Ever since then, she has just been a tremendous resource. And so I would like to introduce Ava. She's on her way. She's in the car. So Ava, if you're there, if you can speak to us, that would be great. And we'd love to hear how you tackled this particular challenge.
Yeah, hi. Is my audio good?
It's good.
Awesome. Okay, hi, and I'm currently a junior at Nevada Union High School, and I'm also an intern at Nevada County Media because of the Nevada County AAUW branch. I helped create the video we just saw, and that was alongside Martha and Ann. Martha came to me like last June, I believe, and I was extremely excited to help out. We contacted all the people seen in the video and interviewed them via Zoom, which I think went great. I actually really preferred it that way because we got to interview people that we otherwise wouldn't have been able to. I've always been super interested in video editing and video production, and this whole experience was just wonderful. I've been editing using a software called Adobe Premiere for a couple years now, and I from my room a few times and during some car rides too on the laptop. I didn't know who to have do the voiceover, but thankfully my mom did pull through and was willing to do it. So thank you, Mom. Overall, yeah, it was a great experience. I'm extremely thankful for Nevada County AAUW and you guys' continued support. It's been really helpful throughout high school. Thank you as well for sponsoring my Nevada County Media internship, where I've been able to further my knowledge in video, lighting, sound editing, and script writing. I just want to give a big thank you to you guys. So thank you.
I want to just say kudos for, Ken Burns should see this. We'll have to send it to him because I'm so impressed with the way you kept the sound going so smoothly, yet you used the still pictures and would, I don't know how you zoom into part and then pull back and do all that stuff, but it looked terrific and it was so professional. It's like, wow.
Thank you so much. Thank you.
Thank you. We really appreciate you, and we can say we knew you when you're accepting the whatever. Okay. Thank you very much. Appreciate it. Well done.
Thank you.
Well, I think the movie is also a reflection of all the hard work that so many people in the branch have put into the scholarships and the funds. So congratulations to all of you. And now we're moving to another part of the program today where we all get to participate. And we'll break into groups. This is going to be led by Deborah York. And welcome, Deb.
Thank you. Thank you. Well, yeah, it'd be a good time to get in small groups and talk with each other. For most of you who read the Lodestone last month, and those of you who didn't, we're going to just do a little follow-up exercise today. Whoop. We're going somewhere. We're going to go into breakout groups, and I think it follows really nicely with our speaker earlier today, because we're going to look back on a career success. I'm not doing all this. Is somebody doing the screen or something?
Yeah, I don't know. I'm not doing it.
A cat and a dog have taken over my screen, it looks like.
It's Carol Yedick. Carol, could you unshare your screen? I'm sure she just hit it by mistake.
Ah. Well, I'll keep talking, but so the question in the Lodestone was to think back on your own career and what you're most proud of. And then in thinking about that, what experiences, choices, and challenges made it possible for you to get there. And so we all have different paths, different journeys to our career successes. And most of us, our career success may be a little behind us at this point, or some of us were still in process, but to think about along your journey, what experiences, what choices, and what challenges helped shape you and help shape your experience. I'm going to pop this question into the chat room. And Bup, are you going to break us into groups then?
Yeah, they are ready to go. Let me see how long I have this set for.
Okay, so the question's now in the chat room. So we'll have 10 minutes in the breakout rooms, rotate around and so everyone gets a chance to share. And then if we can have someone just do a quick summary at the end, we'll have a time for each group to say what struck you, what were some of the highlights maybe, or themes that you heard in your discussion. Okay.
Okay, here we go. And remember, if you want to use the chat room for something, you'll have to open it up again to see the questions once you're into the breakout room. There we go.
Okay, so I think we're all back, mostly back, not quite all back. People get lost in space. Where's Bub?
I'm here.
There you are. Okay, maybe we lost some people. So we have 5 groups, I think. Let's make it fairly quick, but just go around, and if someone from each group could share just the highlights of kind of what was the overall takeaway for you in this little exercise.
Well, I'd be glad to go.
Okay.
I was with a wonderful group of Mary and Barbara, and we talked about careers, and they had some wonderful careers. We found that the challenges were financial. There were fewer choices for women of our age, and being a woman were the challenge. And the encouragements were family and family support from the time we were growing up, as well as great support from husbands. And I think that summarizes it.
Thank you, Nancy. Great. Okay, next group. I don't know who you are, so you're going to have to volunteer.
I'll volunteer. I'll do our group.
Okay.
They volunteered me as a spokesman, so apparently I'll volunteer.
Right.
So apparently we didn't take very good notes of the question. But our conversation focused on, things we were most proud of with regards to the track our careers took. And I will say, I was with Anne and Susan and Bernadette, and while the stories were all very different, even though we had 2 teachers with us, there was a common thread that I saw was that it was all about people ultimately, and how we're impacting, and our work was impacting people and inspired by people and driven by people in a very collective way, and how organizations come together and how we use those networks, right, in order to further our careers and impact other people's lives. I'd say kind of was a part of everyone's story. So.
Very good. Thank you. Susie, do you want to do ours?
Oh, rats, I didn't take notes, but I can try and remember.
You had a good summary at the end.
Well, we had Bup, Deb, and Terry, and me, and everybody, I think, talked about like a serendipitous moment. I think each person had an opportunity where they said yes to that opportunity, and it kind of changed the trajectory. So I think that was really the main thing, just willing to take a risk and say yes.
Yeah, very good. All right, who are we missing? What group?
I guess I can go. Martha, you didn't step up. So I was with Martha and Deb Coverly, and the big theme was that none of us really knew what we wanted to do as we were growing up and going to high school and even college. And just kind of different things happened along the way that we took one route or another and got to where we wanted to go. And well, some of us. One was Deb was not able to pursue the things that she really wanted to do in being, and that had to do with the challenges, being a woman and being discouraged from going into agriculture or forestry, which was her first choice. And I think those are the main things that we just, and I would say for Martha, she said she really enjoyed working with people a lot, and that was a joy for her. And she did it through different careers and jobs. And I really enjoyed working in the field of planning and resource protection, and was fortunate enough to work on Sonoma County's coast and Lake Tahoe through my 2 jobs. So I had a fair amount of joy with that.
Awesome. Excellent. Did we get everyone, or are we missing a group?
Franny?
Okay. Franny, can you unmute?
Sorry. I think Annabelle was going to speak, but I don't know if she's still there or not. Anyway, I have to say that I was with Carolyn and, oh gosh, I'm sorry. A senior moment.
Carol, I think.
Yeah, and Yedick, Carol. So anyway, and Annabelle, I thought it was just so interesting and enjoyable to get to know these people better. And it was interesting how choices kind of fell into, well, this line's shorter than the other line when I was registering in college. That was Carol. And how your personality, how developing your personality led you to do other things. Like Annabelle talked about being an introvert, and yet she threw herself and wholeheartedly, as she said, into different things. And then Carol, well, she had a history of closing down businesses. Right? Every place she worked, after a while, they went out of business, which I know is no reflection on her. But I mean, it was interesting how your personality and circumstance depends what you're doing. I don't think any of ours depended on being a woman. I don't think anybody said that that was an issue. It wasn't for me, and nobody else mentioned it. That's it.
Very good. Thank you. Thank you. Well, I'll just wrap it up with saying we all had really different journeys. Serendipity played a big role in many groups in terms of what you studied, what you did, what you thought you were going to do. Some people did a straight trajectory on that, but other people jumped in one place and from there on that little rock saw another lily pad and jumped to something else and jumped to something else. And so I think it's always fascinating to learn more about each other and understand how we got where we got today. So this is another little piece in understanding how we're all different and we all got to where we are today, but through very, very different pathways. So thank you very much for participating and for all the rest of the meeting. I'll turn it back to Mary to close us, I guess. Are you still?
Okay, thanks to everybody who helped put this meeting together. People involved with scholarships, Tech Trek, Bup and Ann Schultz, Fran Erickson, Martha. Thank you so much. Our next meeting will be November 20th, and we'll have a speaker. We're hoping to be at Peace Lutheran Church. We'll let you know. We're having a speaker on the media from Sacramento. Shanti and I are hoping to do the Christmas party, and we've chosen a Mexican restaurant that's in Alta Sierra, Las Catarinas. Again, we hope to meet in person for that. Thank you all for attending today.
Great.
Okay, thank you.
Great to see you all and
Lady.
learn so much.
Thanks, everybody.